Hello, this is our second part of a short course in how to program in Pascal. Turbo Pascal 7.1 is what we're using, and we are going to write a program that encodes a string of text into Morse code symbols. This is a project I was given 25 years ago or so, and we're going to try and replicate that today. So the first program that we're going to create today is going to be a very simplified version of it. It will do the job, but it won't have any error checking or anything like that, but it will still do the job, and then we'll move on in a third part to making it a much better version of the program. But the first thing I want to point out is you're going to need, if you're following along, you're going to need an ASCII chart like this. We need to convert the letters and symbols that people type in into their decimal ASCII code. So E, for example, is the number 69 and P is 79. Today all we're going to be using is from 65 through to 90, but in our next version we'll be going all the way from 32 down to 127. That way we'll be covering the entire keyboard. But for now, on a simplified version, we're just going to do the letters, uppercase letters A through to Z, and if people type in lowercase letters, we'll be doing something to convert them to uppercase so that that doesn't create an error. So you can find this, just type in ASCII chart in Google, and you won't have any trouble at all finding what you need. Okay, so I've opened up DOSBox and already got Turbo Pascal 7.1 up and running, which we covered in the last episode. So we can start writing our code. Okay, so the first line of text that we need to put in is as follows: program, that's to tell Pascal, the Pascal compiler, the name of the program. We're going to use Morse Code just to keep it simple. Then we have to type in uses CRT, and this is where it starts getting more important. We have to do our variables, then our constants, and then we begin the program, and then we end the program. So what do we want? Now, variables are things that can change, so we need a couple of these. First of all, we need one which will hold the string of text that is inputted by the user, so we'll call that Morse text, and that is of the type string. Every line we end with a semicolon. Now we need to do an integer as well, because we need to know how long the string of text is, so we'll call that string length. And then we need to declare what type of variable it is. It is an integer. Okay, so now our constants. Constants are like variables, but they don't change, hence the name constant, const being short for constant. Now this is the big one. This is going to take us a little while to type in. I'll start it off and then I'm going to pause the video and come back to say boring you to death, but we're going to call it morsim array, and then we declare it as an array of (26). This is going to be all of the Morse code symbols that represent the alphabet A to Z, so we need 26 spaces in that array. Then we need to declare what we're going to be putting in those spaces in the array. In this case there'll be strings, and then we can say what each one of them is. So we start off, each one we do in a pair of single quotes, and the letter A is represented with a dot and a dash. So you can find these on Google. Type in Morse code and you'll easily find hundreds and hundreds of sites that will show you. You can print it off or keep a copy on your computer of all of the Morse code symbols for different letters and numbers, etc. Very easy to find. So the letter A is a dot and a dash. Each one is separated by a comma. Then we do another couple of single quotes, and the symbols for the letter B is dash dot dot dot. Then next one separate with a comma again, and the letter C is dash dot dash dot. And I'm going to pause the video here and finish this off, and we can carry on from there. Okay, so I've finished typing them in. There's 26 of them. I've checked that I've got that right by compiling. I clicked make there by mistake, but that doesn't make any difference. It still shows that it's compiled okay. There's something that you may or may not know at this point. Once you've made it the active window and your mouse is inside the window, it won't go. The way to release your mouse from that window is Control and F10. Then you can leave the window, and then when you click back in the window, you're back again. So that's our variables and our constants done. And now we're in the main part of the program. The main part of the program is defined by this begin statement and an end statement, and the end statement has a full stop at a period at the end, and that is the end of the that means the end of the program, or the main loop of the program anyway. You also need to use begin and end for loops, for loops, while loops, etc. And the ends in a for loop is concluded with a semicolon rather than a full stop or a period. So that's the difference, but we'll get to that later on. Right, so begin. What we're going to do first of all is ask the user to write in a line of text that it wants to be converted to Morse code. So same thing as when we declared the array. It goes inside curly brackets and single quotes. A string goes inside single quotes, and it's ended with a semicolon. In this first version, we're just going to get people to put in a single word rather than a sentence, because we're not going to be designing this to handle entire sentences yet, only single words. So we're going to ask them, let's see, please enter a word that you would like to be converted to Morse code. So that will display that sentence, and what we need is for the user to be able to type that word in, and the way we do that is by using a command called read line, and we have to store that into a variable. We've already declared that as up here as Morse text, as a string. So basically whatever we put in these curly brackets after read line is assigned to a variable that we declared. In this instance it's called Morse text. Closing curly bracket and a semicolon. So what we can do now, let's just check that compiles okay. It does. Right, let's move on. That was really quite irritating, having a page full of text, so I think every time we start the program we want to clear the screen, and that's the command to do that. So let's just try that. Yep, that's fine. Right, next, what we want to do is convert any text that, any word that the user types in, to all uppercase. So if they type a combination of upper and lowercase letters, we want them all to be uppercase letters. Even if they type in uppercase, when we convert it, it just won't make any difference. It won't change it to lowercase or something. And we use a command to do this called upcase, but we need to do it in a loop because we need to go through each letter of the user's input one by one, and that also requires us to know how long the word is that the user's typed in. So we start off, before we do the loop, we need to start off with we created our integer earlier on called string length, so we need to use that. So string length equals length Morse text. So hopefully you can see what I've done there. So this procedure here, length, changes the variable, whatever is inside the curly brackets, into uppercase. So that has converted everything in that string to uppercase. So now let's just move that down a little bit so it's a bit clearer. We'll do a loop. Now loops, they go like this. For I equals 1, 2, one to string length. So we want the loop to go from 1 to however long the string is. So if it's 10 letters, it will loop through 10 times. And then do. As I said before, we use begin and end with loops. So begin, end, which ends in a semicolon this time rather than a full stop or a period. And we want to, right, so that this makes sense, all strings in Pascal are arrays, and it's an array of the size of the string, the number of letters. So in this instance, if it was a 10-letter word, then the array would be would have a length of 10. So we want to Morse text I. So I goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Every time it goes through the loop, it goes up by 1. So the first time it goes through the loop, it's going to take the first letter of the Morse text string. Second time it goes through the loop, it's going to go to the second letter in the Morse text string array, and so on and so forth until it reaches the very end of the array. So we've got Morse text I equals upcase Morse text I, closing curly bracket and a semicolon. So it literally, one letter at a time, converts whatever letter's there, whether it's lowercase or uppercase, to uppercase. And then it moves to the second letter, and the third letter, and the fourth letter, until it reaches the end of the array, the string array. And now everything is in uppercase, and it all being in uppercase means we only have to convert it to Morse code once. If we did it for lowercase and uppercase letters, then we would have to include all of them in our Morse sim array, but this saves us quite a lot of typing. Right, so we've just used a variable I which we haven't declared. So if we go to the top where we're declaring our variables, we want to declare I as an integer. If you've got more than one variables of the same type, in this case integer, you can just separate them with a comma, and you can do that as many times as you like. Saves typing the whole thing out again. And we can probably get rid of that space there, and that's our first loop finished. Right, we only need one other loop now, and what we're going to do now is simply replace the letter one by one. So the first letter of the string text, we're going to convert from its letter into its corresponding Morse code symbol. But to do that, we're going to use something called ASCII. I showed you the ASCII chart at the beginning, and we can use that to great effect here, and I'll show you how we do it. So let's do the loop first, and then I'll show you how we convert letters to their corresponding value in the ASCII chart. So we're going to use another variable for j equals 1 to string length, same as before. Do. And then we want a begin and an end, which we finish with a semicolon, and we need another variable as well, so we'll call that k equals, we're going to use this line to convert our now uppercase letter into its corresponding ASCII code. Okay, so k equals ord stands for ordinal, Morse text j, so we're going through each letter in the string length one by one again, and that returns an integer of the value of the ASCII code to the variable k, but that I believe is something like, oh, it's a big number, let me just find that, we need to work that out. So if it's the letter A, it's 6. Ah, right, okay. So the value for the letter A is 65, and we want it to be number 1 because we want to use the first position in our Morse sim array. So we, in order to make 65 1, we take away 64. So minus 64, and that same thing will apply with every one. With the letter B, its code is 66. And if we take away 64, we're left with 2, which is then the second position in the Morse sim array. So that will work all the way to Z. Closing curly bracket and a semicolon. And then we want to write the result. So write Morse sim array. So that's the name. That's the name of our array up there. And then the position of it, which will be k, because that's got the ordinal value assigned to it. And then what we can do now is something called concatenation, if I can spit it out. And that means when you join two strings together as one. So the first part of this concatenation is the Morse code symbol, and the second part, all we're going to do is add a couple of spaces in between each of those Morse code symbols so that they can be differentiated. So that is, yeah, that's all we need. Close bracket, semicolon, and I think we're done. Let's just make sure that compiles okay. Okay, we've got an error. Ah, okay, we haven't declared J and K as variables, so we just need to go up here, J and K, so that hopefully will do it. Yep, that's compiled fine. There is one other thing I think we should do before we carry on. Just here, right, what this does is waits for an input from the user and assigns it to the variable pausing, which we haven't created yet. We'll have to go and do it. That just means that the program will pause and wait for an input so we can actually see what's happened, because if we didn't do that, the screen would close before we actually saw if it works. So that's quite important. So if we go to the top, it doesn't really matter where we put this. We'll put it there. That's fine. Yep, so let's run it, see what happens. Please enter a word that you would like to be converted to Morse code. So let's try banana again, and there we go. The letter B is indeed dash dot dot dot. The letter A is dot dash. Letter N is dash dot, and we already know dot dash is the letter A, and that's at the end as well. That's perfect. That's working absolutely fine. So now all we need to do is put anything in the input, and we will exit the program back to the compiler, the editor I should say. So that's it. So that is the program in its most simplest form. As a project that I would have originally been given, this will fail completely because we haven't used functions or procedures which would have been required, and it's got no error checking at all, and you can't really do multiple words, but we are going to move on to that in the next episode. But for now, that's it. That is a working, very simple version of a word to Morse code encoder. So until next time, goodbye.